All right. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are indeed free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell for notifications, and participate in the conversation by commenting down below and upvoting the video itself. I'm here with Mike Huseman. He's the transfer portal czar. How you doing, Mike?
Doing well. Yeah, glad to be here. It's first time on the podcast. We've done the Twitter Spaces before, but glad to finally see a face.
Yeah, seriously. It is a lot of fun. Anyway, I've been talking over the last couple of days about the inevitable transfer portal reset that was going to happen after the bowl games ended. Talk about the dynamic a little bit of the transfer portal going in the early part of the window and the late part of the window before it closes on the 18th.
So the early part of the window, you get higher volume. Way more guys go in, but a lot of those guys go in because of lack of playing time. They're not seeing the field as much as they would like, and that's the facts of it. So if we're looking at an overall spectrum, percentage, probably 85% of the guys that will go in have already went in. But the guys that have yet to go in and will are oftentimes better players who are helping their teams more and looking for a fit that is going to help them in 1 or 2 years get to the NFL better. Sam Hartman's a great example of that. A guy waited till after the bowl game. He has 1 year left. He is, we assume he's going to Notre Dame. In any case, he's not going back to Wake. He's going to go somewhere that's going to give him a better 1 year audition for the NFL.
Okay.
So I think it's more guys go in early on, but guys who are going to be immediate contributors and have been playing more have yet to go in. And much of that centers around they're going to play through the bowl games, see how that goes, but they have to make that decision within the next week or two because of the practicality of you have to be enrolled for classes and the spring semester starts.
Yeah. Well, let's talk. What are some names that you have that might be fits for Ole Miss moving forward into the second part of the window?
So I think Joshua Cobbs is a guy to look for. He was a wide receiver from Wyoming, and we're hearing that the Rebels have a good chance to get him. He's a tall, big-bodied guy. Not quite as big as Marshall, but probably thicker. He, and at Wyoming, they don't throw the ball a ton. It's a different style of passing game, play action, more of your NFL style throws. But I think he's an outside fit if he goes to Ole Miss. I mean, he's not going to be that slot type guy that they look for. But on the outside, he is absolutely a P5 player somewhere. And then in looking at Ole Miss and the guys at the portal, I think the line and beefing up those side, both lines is where we're going to see more of their action. They're probably not going to go after a quarterback. I will say I may have been wrong early on. I thought they would for sure target a running back. I was pretty set from early on that Evans was going to go to the draft, which he now has, and that they would get a guy to complement Judkins. I don't know if that's a priority anymore. Maybe Lane likes who they have, whether that's Bentley coming back or he has another guy on the roster he likes. We're not hearing the running back position being guys they are after. Tight end wise, Blake Smith, who was at A&M, is a top-notch tight end. He could be a good addition. He's a guy who could fit almost any system. He end line, H-back, could play a lot of places, move him around. He certainly looks the part, and he's one of those guys. He won't just end up at a P5 school. It'll be a ranked team that's competitive where he's going to end up. And, you look at him size-wise, I don't know off the top of my head, but he would have to be between that 250 and 260 range. He's a thick-bodied guy who isn't super tall, but is tall enough. And at the O-line is where I think we see some of their potential for the Rebels. A couple guys that I had earmarked that they are still in that they could look at are John Campbell, O tackle from Miami, Florida, and then Damian George, tackle from Bama, who is George isn't a fit everywhere. He's an absolutely mammoth of a person who is really good at downhill run blocking. And I think because of the way Ole Miss runs, he could work there. And then I was deliberate to say Miami, Florida for Campbell, because we have guard Caleb Schaefer, who was at Miami, Ohio, teammate with John Saunders, and one of the better guards left in the portal. I think he's a guy to watch for, and it wouldn't shock me if he ends up there. He has, other schools interested in him as well. Certainly go to a P5 school, but he's a guy to see. On the defensive side of the ball, I'm not sure. I wasn't on last week, even on the Twitter space. Did you talk about Joshua Harris at all? D-tackle from NC State?
Yeah. Yes,
perfect.
A little bit.
So, yeah, I think he's a great fit. Like he looks the part of the way their interior D linemen have been. On the edge and at linebacker, we have multiple A&M guys who I think could be possibilities. Donnell Harris and Marcus Burris are both edges who it's a position you can never have too much of. You always want them fresh. You want to have 3 or 4 of them that are good, depending on the style of a tackle passing game you're going to see. And they were both high recruits who left A&M like so many. I mean, they're a team who they've gotten killed in the portal this offseason. They've also killed it in bringing in guys too. So they've replaced almost as well as they've gotten. But obviously with bringing in Marshall and most of the A&M guys we're leaving are going to other major schools. So I think they're 2 to look for. One of the most interesting guys in the portal who I think we should watch out for, he's not as highly known, but it's Ish Harris. He's nominally an inside backer, but he's only about 195 pounds, and he's 6'4". He is super rangy, gangly, has the, Gumby-looking arms. So he's definitely a tweener, but athletic as can be. And I think in their defensive setup, he could play almost anywhere across that level 2 area. And I have no idea if he's considering Ole Miss. He's been very tight that we don't know anywhere that he's considering. But I think it's a fit and something that could be an interesting thing to watch for. And then Jeremiah John Baptiste, have you talked about him at all? He was a linebacker from UCF.
I've talked about him, but go ahead.
Okay. So linebacker who was a surprising one. I think a lot of people didn't expect that he would enter the portal, but he did. 1 year left to play. Well, I should say he's a senior. I don't know if he has 2 years because of the wonky, 2020 COVID year. He's your kind of prototypical inside backer. He's 6'1", 6'2", probably 225 squat guy, going to play A to A gap. And he'll see the field, I think, right away. The last guy on D who I think is one to look for that could be a big get across from Saunders would be J.D. Coffey, defensive back at Texas. And top-notch guy. Most of the SEC Big 12 schools are going to be looking at him. But I think with the way Lane has utilized the portal, they'll be in the mix for him if they want him. And he could be a good instant contributor for them as well.
All right. And I hate to blindside you because about 15 minutes before we started recording, Julius Welskopf, the German from Michigan, went into the transfer portal. We know that Chris Partridge has a relationship up there with the Mason Blue, the defensive coordinator at Ole Miss. Do you know anything about that recruitment? Because a 6'7", 270-pound edge player seems like that's probably the ballpark they want to be playing in.
In terms of his recruitment, I can't say I know much. As a player, he is kind of a unicorn. I mean, like we see with some of these players from foreign countries, he's extremely raw, but he has talent that is NFL caliber. You don't play at a school like that being that raw unless they see something in you. So, in terms of how his high school recruitment looked, I don't know where else he was considering, but he certainly is a guy that's going to get looked at just because almost anybody will be willing to take a flyer on him because the upside is so enormous.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen today. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with the local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. It's Locked On Sports Today. It's available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Mike, thank you so much for stopping by today, and we have to do this again before the window closes in a couple weeks, man.
Absolutely. I would be glad to.
All right. Take care, bud.
You too.